Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down by week number 14 defenses to stream for the 2024 fantasy football season, going in depth through 5 different defenses that I believe you guys should not only just walk, you should run over to the waiver wire to pick up right now prior to week 14, as well as a couple of honorable mention defenses. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And before we get on into things, I just want to make note that there are a bunch of teams on bye this week: the Ravens, the Broncos, the Texans, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Commanders. So there's definitely slimmer pickings at defense this week. So without further ado, let's get on into today's video. We begin with my number 1 defense to be streaming on the week, and that is the Tennessee Titans going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in Tennessee. The Titans defense is currently rostered in 1.5% of leagues on NFL, 13.4% on ESPN, and 5% on Yahoo. Now, when it comes to the Titans defense in week 13, going up against the Commanders in Washington, this was a game that was not even close. It was an instant knockout, Jorge Masvidal to Ben Askren style by the Washington Commanders, right? Instantly in the game, it felt like it was 40-0, and the Titans were just playing comeback, and ultimately they could not do anything, right? The Titans lose 19-42. Now, obviously, the Titans are not a amazing defense, right? I don't think anyone's getting down on their knees and giving the Gawk 9000 special to the Titans defense, but I also don't think they are as bad as we saw up against Jaden Stormy Daniels and friends. Honestly, that kind of felt like a game where a lot of people are starting to get down on the Commanders. Ooh, the Commanders are fugazi, they're a wazi, they're a woozy, and then they just ended up putting belt to ass there. They ended up just literally beating the pulp out of the Titans defense. It was like a UFC fight where you see a guy get knocked out and then they go to the ground and they're clearly unconscious and they're getting beaten, and it's honestly hard to watch. It's like Herb Dean pull the guy off, and then you just watch some guy get punched 4 times to the face unconscious and they don't end the fight. That's what that felt like. It felt like they should have waved the wed flag. They should have wave the white flag, thrown in the fucking towel, Apollo Creed style, right? And just end the fight. The Titans got demolished. They had 2 sacks, 1 INT, 42 points allowed. But there's a big difference in playing the Washington Commanders and playing the Jacksonville Jaguars without Trevor Lawrence. Now, Trevor Lawrence ends up coming back last week. It's like, yip, hooray. Finally, Trevor Lawrence is back. Maybe the offense will start percolating. And then he got absolutely rocked by a Texans defender who has, I believe, been suspended. Those are the kind of plays that you hate to see, but are probably going to happen once or twice every single year, where a defender makes the decision, hey, I'm going to try to hit this guy, and then they slide, and then they end up colliding, and it ends terrible for the quarterback. I don't know how you stop that move. Obviously, when you're watching it in like super duper slow motion, you're like, oh, what a dirty player, right? And I get it. Obviously, that's something he shouldn't even have attempted to dive for him when he knew he was going to slide. But nowadays, maybe he thought he was going to do the Kenny Pickett fake fucking slide or something. So, again, terrible situation. I hope Trevor Lawrence is okay. We have made fun of Trevor Lawrence all year. We've talked up Trevor Lawrence because of just how much better he is than Mac Jones. But ultimately, safety is number 1, and I hope that he is okay. With that said, though, there is no way he's playing up against the Titans, and Mac Jones is just far from ideal. The Texans win 23-20 last week up against the Jags in Jacksonville in Duval. 1 INT, 20 points allowed. So going up against Mac Jones, anytime you can face him with your defense, that is a wet dream, finger licking good matchup. Next up, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. 49.7% rostered on NFL for the Bucs, 53.3% on ESPN, and 52% on Yahoo. Now, the Buccaneers defense, week 13 up against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. They win 26-23 in overtime. And honestly, what a masterclass performance by Bryce Young. Now, maybe that sounds like too much of a dick ride right there, but honestly, Bryce Young has been playing so much better, and it's kind of just awesome to see. I don't really know anyone that hates Bryce Young. Sure, I guess maybe if you're like a fan in that division, right? Maybe you're a Buccaneers fan and you just can't wait to watch Bryce Young fail. But I think a majority of NFL fans were rooting for Bryce Young, and I thought he played quite well. The Buccaneers defense, another one of those that's far from world beaters, right? 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, 23 points allowed. But again, you don't need a world-beating defense to perform up against Mac Jones and the Jaguars, just like you don't need a world-beating defense to go up against the Raiders and Aiden O'Connell. Now, Aiden O'Connell played quite well up against the Chiefs, but frankly, it wasn't good enough. A lot of people blame the refs. A lot of people blame the fucking gypsy witchcraft, black magic, shout out White Boy 7th Street, that the Chiefs use. I don't know, maybe that Taylor Swift fucking voodoo magic was working because they somehow won that game. Yet another game that they should have definitely lost that they won. And it's so funny because while everyone's like, oh, the Chiefs are going to get ran over in the playoffs, and while I would love to see Patrick Mahomes, Kermit the Frog, and friends go down, I honestly still think, while they don't look good at all, that they're somehow going to fall ass backwards through the playoffs. They're going to have a bye week. They're going to beat up on like the Ravens, and then they're going to beat up on the Bills, and then they're going to get to the Super Bowl. And even though everyone in America, everyone across the world is uniting, let's go Lions, come on, please beat the Chiefs. And then the Chiefs are just going to beat the fuck out of them. Like, it just happens every single time. I don't think the Chiefs are very good. And I guess we don't need to talk too much about the Chiefs because that's not a part of today's video. But the Chiefs just keep winning, man. They just keep winning. So the Chiefs up against the Raiders, they win 19-17, 3 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, 17 points allowed. Again, I am not going to sit here and pretend like the Buccaneers are the 85 fucking Bears defense, right? But what I'm going to say is anytime you can stream a quarterback, anytime you can stream a defense up against Aiden O'Connell, you're going to be feeling real nicey. Shout out to John Gruden. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. 16.8% rostered on NFL, 23% on ESPN, and 22% on Yahoo. Now, the Seahawks defense, week 13, going up against the New York Jumbo Jets in MetLife in New Jersey. They win 26-21. 2 sacks, 1 INT, 1 fumble recovery, 1 touchdown, the big man touchdown, 21 points allowed, and 6 straight games with 1 pick. Now, this is a matchup that we saw just a couple of weeks ago where the Seahawks played up against the Cardinals at home in Seattle. This time, it's in Arizona. Week 12 versus Arizona, they win 16-6, 5 sacks, 1 INT, 1 touchdown, 6 points allowed. While I have been kind of dismissive of the Seahawks defense because honestly, they did not live up to my expectations early on in the season, it's important not to fucking bear hug onto some narrative I had a couple of weeks ago and continue to reassess because as of recently, the Seahawks defense has caught fire. Now, again, I don't think they are this Seahawks defense from the past, right? Bobby Wagner, Richard Sherman and friends, right? Pete Carroll chewing his fucking gum on the sideline. I don't think that's the defense that we have here, but the Cardinals offense is bipolar. They sometimes show up looking like one of the best offenses across the National Football League, and other times they show up like they forgot they even had a game. They just looked ill-prepared. Like up against the Vikings, where prior to the game, all you're hearing is, wow, they're going to really look to use Marvin Harrison Jr., and then they don't feed Marvin Harrison Jr., right? It was just a very interesting, just a very interesting team the Cardinals are. Now, the cold like Minnesota Vikings beat them 23-22. The Vikings also kind of feel like a little bit of a Fugazi team. 1 sack, 2 INTs, 22 points allowed. Again, we have seen the Seahawks defense completely limit any offensive boom, firepower from Kyler Murray and friends. So while I'm still not completely sold on the Seahawks defense, I do like them up against the Cards. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints going up against the New York Football Giants. 16.5% roster on NFL, 29.6% on ESPN, and 27% on Yahoo. Now, as of right now, where we are sitting on Monday, the quarterback situation in New York is kind of just undefined, right? Is it going to be Tommy fucking Cutlets, Tommy DeVito, or is it going to end up, instead of being Tommy DeVito, being Horsecock Drew Lock? Now, again, we shall see. Personally, based upon what we saw up against the Cowboys, while Drew Lock kind of looked like a chicken with his head cut off running behind the offensive line, he definitely looked better than Tommy Cutlets. So if I was Brian Daboll, if I was trying to save my job, I would play Drew Lock. But again, I don't want to sit here and say with 100% certainty, it's a guarantee that Drew Lock is the lead signal caller in that game. So the Saints defense up against the Rams, they lose that game 14-21. They get 2 sacks and 21 points allowed up against the Rams. Now, the Rams offense are on a whole nother pedigree compared to the Giants. The Rams have been pretty hit or miss. We've seen some high highs, some low lows, like a very low low was up against the Dolphins in primetime. But you know that Matthew Stafford has that dog in him. You know he could drop his nuts in the defense's mouth and throw 4 touchdowns in any given game. So the Saints defense played okay there. Again, the skeleton key, the real reasoning behind streaming the Saints is not because I love the Saints defense. It's because I love the matchup up against the Giants. The Dallas defense, week 13 versus Drew Lock and the Giants on Thanksgiving. They win 27-20, 6 sacks, 1 INT, 1 fumble recovery, 1 touchdown, and 20 points allowed. The Giants' offensive line is a turnstile that gets plowed on a weekly basis. So again, while the Saints defense aren't the hottest commodity on earth, anytime you can go up against that Giants O-line, you're going to be seeing a whole lot of sacks like you are watching a video on the other tube that doesn't start with you. So final defense to talk about before we get into the honorable mentions is my Miami Dolphins going up against the New York Jumbo Jets. 20.6% rostered on NFL, 42.2% on ESPN, and 44% on Yahoo. But before we talk about the Dolphins some more, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, you can claim your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash tonight. Monday Night Football, the free pick's going to be famous Jameis Winston, higher than half of a total yard. And match that with any player playing on the other side of the game, not on the Browns, or with anyone playing on Thursday Night Football, Sunday Football, or Monday Football next week. And if both your picks hit, you'll get 3 times what you put in your pick 'em. If you do multiple other picks, they all have to hit, but the payout will be higher. If you're watching this after Monday Night Football has already kicked off, then if you use promo code Notorious, you will either get a NBA player higher than half a total point or a different NFL quarterback higher than half a total yard. So make sure you guys check that out. If you're a first-time depositor, use promo code Notorious to get that free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So back to the Dolphins. The Dolphins got filleted. The Dolphins got dominated 50 Shades of Grey style by the Green Bay Packers. Now, if the Dolphins kick returner could have, held on to the ball on the punt, maybe things would have been different. But the second they muffed the punt, I knew this game was spooked for the Dolphins. I knew it was over. Same old Dolphins can't play in the cold. The Dolphins defense does diddly squat. They lose 17-30. They allowed, I believe, 20 missed tackles in that game, 30 points allowed. Brutal showing. But guess what? Now you get to go back in the warm. Now you get to go back to Miami. Dale, the 305. Shout out Pitbull, right? And then they're going to make me buy back in again. I'm out, and I'm going to buy back in, right? They're going to beat the Jets. They're going to beat the ever-living shit out of the Jets. Why? Because Tua's never lost to the Jets. Tua owns the Jets. But it won't matter because they're not making the playoffs, right? And the Dolphins defense, while they just got face-fucked for 60 straight minutes, guess what? They will show up against the Jets because the Jets aren't good. That's what they do. They are a soft defense, a soft team that will now show up against the Jets. You just better believe it. I know it's going to happen. The Seattle defense, like we already discussed, week 13 last week in MetLife, they win 26-21, 2 sacks, 1 INT, 1 touchdown, 21 points allowed, and 6 straight games with a pick. So again, the Seattle defense definitely better than the Dolphins defense, but you already know the Dolphins defense is going to be just perfectly mid in this game. I don't think the Dolphins defense is at the same level of any of the other defenses here, but they are fine, right? If you're down bad at the defense, you're looking through the waiver wire and you can't really find anyone. There's a bunch of teams on bye. The Ravens, the Broncos, the Texans, the Colts, the Patriots, the Commanders. Maybe you didn't stash a defense and you got to play the Dolphins. There are worse options out there, in my opinion. Now we move on into the honorable mentions, beginning with the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Carolina Panthers. The Eagles were actually pretty readily available in NFL, like around half of the leagues, but I did like Yahoo and it was like 80% or something like that. So I didn't end up including them. Bryce Young has looked a whole lot better, but this Eagles defense has just looked rock solid, like they're off a honey pack as of recently. And while Bryce Young has looked better, I do think the Eagles defense kind of stifle any of that attack. Then we got both the Chargers and the Chiefs defense. They're playing up against each other. This game is in Kansas City. Justin Herbert didn't really play all that well last week. The defense kind of bailed them out. The Chiefs offense hasn't really looked the best. So if you can pick up the Chiefs, I do like these teams a decent amount. So the Chargers going up against the Chiefs, I do think they should play quite well again because Mahomes hasn't played the best. And the Chiefs against the Chargers, because I do feel like this will end up probably being like, everyone's going to be like, this is going to be such a high scoring game, right? And then it ends up being like fucking 14 to 10 or something boring like that. And then we got the Cardinals versus the Seahawks. The reversal, the other side of that game that we talked about. The Cardinals defense has been percolating a lot more as of recently. Geno Smith, pretty hit or miss as well. So this could be a solid game out of them. So if I didn't talk about any defenses that you were interested in picking up, you're like, Nick, you didn't talk about X defense or Y defense, then ask down below in the comment section. I love talking to you guys down there. I really appreciate you guys' support this season. It has meant the world to me. Crazy that we're already basically in the fantasy football playoffs, but without you guys, the whole ship sinks. So make sure if you're new, hit that subscribe button like it owes you money. Leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. Check out Underdog again to get your free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. I love you more than you will ever know. I hope you have a great one, and as always, good boy.